So I had my final today. I have some time for making videos for YouTube. Now, I know there's been people that have told me I shouldn't deal with Brock Lawley. But really, I don't deal with him as much as dealing with his, his dishonesty. When it comes to like that, I dealt with him directly. But most of the time, I just deal with the arguments he puts forth, which are usually derived from people like Dinesh D'Souza or Ravi Zacharias or others. This one I'm dealing with is from his video, New Science, Old Atheism, which is taken from, if I remember correctly, Dinesh D'Souza. And I didn't really check to see how much of the video is verbatim from Dinesh D'Souza, but I'm guessing it's probably a fairly good portion of it. The first thing I want to talk about is his claim. Dinesh D'Souza's claim that Brock Lawley brought up is nothing contradicts the concept of life after death, which is a very interesting claim because nothing supports the concept of life after death either. Now, of course, we're talking about the life of the soul, because if you're talking about life in a biological sense, well, death is by definition the end of that life, and hence, therefore, you cannot have life after death. But he's talking about a soul. Well, you can talk about souls till you're blue in the face, and you can try to then use the concept of a soul to prove something. But until you actually demonstrate the existence of a soul, you've done nothing. You've basically just begged the question. You've balked at burden of proof. So, don't claim that a soul exists without proving it. Or don't expect your audience, such as me or anyone else that's fairly rational, to go, a soul exists. Okay, does your argument work? We might look at it hypothetically, but other than that, no. So, you have an argument with no foundation. No proof of a soul exists. In fact, in an earlier video I did, I kind of demonstrated that the mind, your concept of a soul, does not fit with the actual data we see. We see the mind as being an emergent property of the brain, and changes to the brain affect that emergence that we call mind. And indeed, some people like split brain patients have two minds, two personalities, two souls, if you will, one for each hemisphere of the brain, which very much directly contradicts any concept that a soul exists independent of the brain. And if the mind is an emergent property of the brain, which again, like I said, the evidence points to, then lo and behold, if the brain dies, the mind ceases to exist, and there is no possibility of life after death. Done with that. Okay, the next thing you bring up is, extra dimensions. You kind of take a leap into quantum mechanics and cosmology here. And yes, I'm looking at some notes I made from the video because, trying not to ramble too much. But in this case, you and D'Souza both show a fundamental lack of understanding of what matter, energy, space, and time are. First of all, realize that these four things, these four independent entities that we're talking about, matter, energy, space, time, are really emergent properties of the same underlying unity. And it can be shown because they are all interrelated. Matter can produce energy, energy can produce matter, space and time are in the same continuum, and they're manipulated by the same things, and they themselves produce virtual particles, as demonstrated by the Casimir effect, which was demonstrated back in 1997. So they produce virtual particles out of essentially nothing, showing that there's a connection between all of these, and they're all interrelated. Matter of fact, that's what modern physics is about, finding TOE, the theory of everything, in which all these things can be interrelated into a simple set of equations. And from those equations, we should be able to define how everything interacts. We may not have a direct, full understanding of everything from that, but at least we can see why things would be the way they are. And we may have a better understanding whether or not a multiverse actually exists. So let's talk about our universe. Generally, we see our universe composed of matter, energy, space-time, and the dimensions of space-time are 4. 3 of space, 1 of time. With quantum mechanics, like M theory, the string theory and stuff, we see that, well, space and time are actually composed of between 11 and 26 dimensions, give or take. And they exist in our universe like that. It's just these other extra dimensions are on a scale so small that normally they don't interact with things that we notice. The Large Hadron Collider could potentially demonstrate the existence of these extra dimensions. But again, it would be inferred from the decay products of the subatomic particles we produce in those collisions. But let's talk about what could be outside our universe, the multiverse, having more universes. Well, this same underlying unity that that would be predicted or explained by TOE if we ever actually develop that thing. Well, they're all still the same underlying aspect of reality that are the interconnected things that we have today. It's matter, energy, space, and time rolled up into a one unified thing. Sometimes it may be expressed in the form of what's called a brain, and brains interacting could very well produce universes like ours. Indeed, if quantum mechanics is correct, then the multiverse has to exist. It would require ad hoc additions to current theories to eliminate the possibility of multiverse, and that is a violation of Occam's razor. It may be wrong, but right now it's pretty much certain that the multiverse should exist, even if we're uncertain about how to demonstrate it fully, and hoping that the Large Hadron Collider might give us some more insight. If a multi-universe exists, then there is no such thing as being outside space and time, or being outside space, time, matter, and energy, being outside the fundamental nature of what existence is. It exists, and it is everything. We're just existing in one emergent expression of it. Without an outside, and it would also be without a beginning and without an end, it would be internal. There's no place for your God to be, Brock. Indeed, by invoking multi-dimensions to say maybe that's where a heaven is, Brock, you've basically killed your God. Why? Because if multiverse exists, no matter how unlikely life is to arise in the universe, there'd be an infinite number of universes for life to possibly arise in. So a fraction of the infinite is itself infinite. So there's an infinite number of universes in which life arises, including our own. No need for a God there, Brock. You completely remove God from the equation. Right now, you kind of have a God of the gaps. You can kind of feel the gaps of our knowledge we have with your God. If a multi-universe is true, there is no gap. Your God is kaput. You've taken your God from his pedestal and, well, basically thrown him out with garbage, which is a good place to put him. So, with that being said, I do kind of want to go with this little homage I had to, or homage, however you want me to pronounce it, to Arthur Conan Doyle and Beware the Lizards 42 and her love of all things Spock. Arthur Conan Doyle said, once you eliminate the impossible, whatever remains, no matter how improbable, must be the truth. Well, with multiverse, God is something impossible. So what remains, however improbable, is a universe and life that exists without a creator, exists as an expression of the physical nature of existence, whatever that physical nature may be in its most underlying aspect. The truth is, the universe and life need no God to explain them away. And Brock, you've actually demonstrated that, though you may not have realized it. Or I should say, you and D'Souza demonstrated it. So thank you, Brock. Indeed, you're not an atheist antidote, because you've just supported atheism in a way that I don't think many of us ever have. It just took a little look. It just took a little bit of a look at what you had to say and extrapolate from that. Thank you. Okay, hopefully this isn't too long and I can put this one up.